The world's gone mad. Completely mad! The problem to solve was impossible to solve. It started off as a bit of a hobby. My God, that was a horrible moment. Oh, okie dokie. Hello, if you're new to this channel, my name is Matthew, a 3-time Magic champion and Magic coach living here in Cambridge. And in today's video, I wanted to do a bit of a Q&A, so I went onto Instagram and asked people to ask me some questions. So, Sook Jill asks, what inspired you to get into Magic? Well, I was 6 years old and I must have seen a magician on television, I think was the first exposure to magic. Probably a guy called Paul Daniels. He was kind of a huge sensation in the 80s and sort of going into the 90s a little bit as well. And my older brother had a magic set, Paul Daniels magic set in the loft. So the next day after seeing that, I begged my parents to get it out of the loft. And then just being in my bedroom and playing around with these tricks. It started off as a bit of a hobby, a fad I suppose. I mean at that age, I was trying everything. But magic was the one thing that just stuck along the way. Haley asks, more muggles guessing magic tricks. I will add some more to that little series. I only did one of them with Sheen, that's years ago now. But yes, I'll do another one, that was fun. George, my video editor, asks, funny stories from while being a magician. Okay, this goes back to being a street performer. There's one guy in Cambridge called Disco Kenny, and he's kind of known as the local crazy person. Every town has a bit of a crazy person. I probably can't say that nowadays, but he was the guy that would do random stuff, and yeah, he was just a bit of a, not a nuisance, but just a fun guy. Somebody even created a Facebook page for him, Disco Kenny Cambridge. He'd wear funny hats and just sort of chat stuff. I don't really know much about him. But I was in the middle of a street show, and at the end of my street show, I used to have all the cards in my mouth because I was doing sleight of mouth. This is the big finale, so I'm standing on top of a platform. I've got a crowd around me, about 50 people. I've got the cards in my mouth, about to do the big reveal, and I just noticed on the edge of my show, so imagine a big sort of semicircle, right on the edge over here, Disco Kenny leans in to the entire arc and goes, the world's gone mad, completely mad, don't you think it's gone crazy? And he just goes off on one for a good few minutes, and I'm just stuck there because I can't touch the cards because it's going to ruin the effect. The audience don't quite know whether this is part of the show, and they're sort of looking at me, looking at Kenny, going, we don't know what's going to happen here. He then finishes, walks off, leaving everyone completely alienated, and I then eventually find the card, unfold it from my mouth, get a kind of a weird applause. And then I say, I'm really sorry about that. I did tell my dad to stay in the car, which then it got a bit of a laugh and managed to reform everybody, and it ended up being a good show. And that was probably the craziest moment. And he didn't just do that once, he did that twice. So yeah, at the same moment, did exactly the same thing again. Crazy, absolutely craziness. Luke Magic Man Jones says, gig horror stories. Gig horror stories. I was doing a big kind of awards night. It's about 500 people, so there are 50 tables, and I said to the organizer, I won't be able to get around all the tables. However, I can do sort of a finale at the end of my bit just to lead into the awards, and I'll introduce the host and I'll make a big show of it. And they said, great, love it. I just learnt this new piece of magic, and I thought, right, I'll set this up, and it took me about 2 hours, I think, to get about, I don't know how many cards. I needed 4 playing cards per person, essentially. What's the maths on that? 4 playing cards per person. It was a lot. 4 times 500. That's 2,000, isn't it? It's 2,000 cards. I can do maths. 2,000 cards. How many decks is that? I can't do that in my head. 38 decks. Does that make sense? Yeah. It was 38 decks. Oh my, I'm insane. I had to get 38 decks and divide them into 4s and then put them into envelopes. I had to get to the gig early I had to do this by myself, but I had to manually hand out all these little envelopes individually for every single place marker. I then do the close-up magic, and I go to kind of the key tables that the organisers told me to go to, and I get to about 10, 12 of those. And then it comes to the finale. So I get on stage and I say, everybody, you've probably seen these envelopes on your tables. It's now time to rip those open and find out what's inside. So everyone's excited, they're ripping open these envelopes, and the 4 playing cards should be inside. I show my jumbo cards. So you should have 4 cards. I like to follow my directions and do as I do. So tear them in half, sit on one piece, Now exchange another piece with the person next to you, throw one piece away, tear another piece in half, cut the cards in half, whatever, following all these directions until you're left with one piece. Okay, so we're sitting on one piece, we have one piece in our hands, and I get the piece that I place up, I think that's with my jacket, and it doesn't match this piece. And in my head, I'm going, if my piece doesn't match, nobody's piece in this room matches either. And I wanted the world to swallow me up because I didn't know what to do. There was no way out of this. The problem to solve was impossible to solve in that moment. I had nothing. I literally came up blank. I said, and the piece should, I looked like this, I looked down at the floor, found the correct piece, dropped this piece on the floor, picked up the other piece, should match. And everybody was a bit confused. The funny thing about this piece is 10% of the audience usually don't follow the instructions and they get it wrong. And the rest of the audience get it right. So this is kind of, oh my God moment, and then a round of applause. The funny thing was, about 10% of the audience got it right somehow, and the rest of them, oh, it was awful. Really, really awful. And then I said, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce your host. Introduce them, and the host walks out and says, wasn't that fantastic? And I was going, you clearly weren't watching or listening, and then the show went on. But my God, that was a horrible moment in front of 500 business people at an award ceremony. Not a highlight of my career, let's put it that way. Thanks for the reminder though. Horrible trick, and if any magicians are watching this, they'll know the piece of magic as well. It's really difficult to mess that up, but apparently I did it, so there we go. Grace asks, do you think magicians have a higher than average IQ? I don't think they have a higher than average IQ. However, I think we would have a higher than average ability to direct people's attention and read a situation very quickly. So I didn't realise this was kind of unique until I got older, really. I just thought this was just part of life and everyone got it, but you've probably met people that are just a bit socially inept, they can't quite read a situation very well. Then there's the kind of, what I'd assume are the average person that can walk into a room and go, oh, there's a bit of a vibe in here, can't quite tell what it is, but whatever. For magicians, it's more of a sense of being able to look at a group of people and understand what mask do I put on or what tools do I use in order to take that group and turn it into a unit which is then ready to be entertained. And magicians are very, very good and very quick at being able to do that. And once you're in a group, I think it's having the ability to go, okay, you're the skeptic, you're the one that's giggly, you're the one that's going to be really into this and really up for it, and you're the one that can take a joke, or you're the one that's the butt of every joke and you're able to take that joke. Every group has these individuals within them. It's a social dynamic which is in every group of people, or group of friends at least, and it's just the way the social hierarchy is contained. You couldn't have many alpha males in a group. There has to be one person that's on top and one person that's on bottom, which it always, yeah, it's just the dynamic. That's the way it goes. So yeah, I think magicians are very, very good at looking at people, looking at groups, and being able to decipher what do I need to do to be liked and to be accepted by this group, and then to ultimately gain control of people's attention and the rhythm of the group. I could go into that for ages, but yeah, I don't think they have a higher IQ, but I think they're better at reading people and manipulating people. And we are the white hat side of manipulation. Con artists would be black hat. They're manipulating for their own gain, whereas magicians are doing it for them. At least good magicians are. I think that's everything. Those are all the questions I was asked. Yeah, hope you enjoyed that. This is the end of the video. If you like this one, you probably like this one too, because it's me. Catch you in a bit.